The major salivary glands, as the name suggests, are major or big in size as compared to the minor salivary glands. They make, modify, and secrete saliva into our oral cavity. There are 3 pairs of major salivary glands, with one present on the left and one on the right side, and they are parotid around the ear, sublingual below the tongue, and submandibular below the mandible. These 3 major salivary glands are encapsulated, that is, covered by a capsule made of a thin layer of tissue. 90% of the saliva in the mouth is produced by these major glands. This is the lateral aspect of the mandible. The masseter muscle is here. On top of the masseter muscle is the parotid gland. The word parotid can be broken down to para plus otic, near and relating to the ear. So the name parotid gland. When mandible is cut here, it exposes the submandibular gland, and below the tongue is the sublingual gland. So this is a variety of food, and some of it must be definitely making your mouth water, that is saliva, and saliva comes out of the major salivary glands by means of ducts. Stensons, Whartons, and Bartholins. Stenson's duct drains the parotid opposite the upper second molar. Wharton's duct drains the submandibular and some of the sublingual gland into the floor of the mouth near the frenulum of the tongue. I will be explaining this in a while. The main duct of the sublingual gland is called the duct of Bartholin. Starting with the parotid gland, it is the largest of the 3 glands, located in the retromandibular area. Retro means behind. That is the area on the posterior aspect of the mandible. Here is the approximate location. Parotid gland, as you can see, extends in front and below the external ear. Stenson's duct drains the parotid gland and opens into the buccal vestibule, that is the space between the gum and the cheek, in a papilla. A papilla is a small rounded projection. You can see the saliva flow out in your own mouth with a mirror in front, and of course eating some very tangy mouth-watering food, or you can just look at this image. There are certain features around the parotid gland that are worth noting, like the facial nerve passes through the body of the parotid gland. Due to this, surgeries in this area should be done with care. During development of the parotid gland, the lymphatic system develops before it gets covered by the capsule. So there are lymph nodes and lymphatic channels inside the gland within the capsule. Since the parotid lymph nodes drain a large part of the forehead, temple, cheek, skin of the ear, neck, etc., skin cancers such as squamous cell carcinoma and melanoma can metastatize to lymph nodes in the parotid gland and mimic or look like a primary parotid tumor, even though it is not. The parotid gland is the location of 80% of the salivary gland tumors. The submandibular and the sublingual gland are found in relation to the mylohyoid muscle. So let us just have some idea about it. This is the medial aspect or the inner surface of the mandible. This muscle originates from the mandible near the molars and inserts into the hyoid bone. There's more information and you can pause and read. The submandibular gland is present below and behind the mylohyoid muscle in the submandibular triangle, inferior to the mandible, between the anterior and the posterior bellies of the digastric muscle. It is the second largest gland. The duct of this gland is the Wharton's duct, and you can see here it runs along the upper surface of the mylohyoid and opens into the oral cavity in the sublingual caruncle. Now this is a new word, caruncle. Sublingual caruncle, as the name suggests, is present below the tongue. If you lift the tip of your tongue and touch it to the palate, underneath you'll have 1, the lingual frenum, and 2, this dotted line is the sublingual fold. Now where these two structures meet, in the midline, there is a papilla or a projection seen on both sides of the lingual frenum, and this is the sublingual caruncle. In Latin, caruncula means a little piece of flesh, and it looks fleshy in the image if you see. The main duct of the submandibular gland and also the sublingual gland open here in the sublingual caruncle. The last one is the sublingual gland. It lies on top of the mylohyoid muscle and underneath the floor of the mouth. It has one major central duct, the duct of Bartholin, and several minor ducts, and these are collectively called as the ducts of rivinus. So there are two names here to remember, Bartholin and rivinus. These two ducts are more clear in this image. This outline is the sublingual gland underneath the mucosa of the floor of the mouth. These small openings, shown by these small blue arrows, are of the minor ducts of rivinus, which open along the sides of the sublingual fold, and saliva drains out of these and flows into the floor of the mouth. Here we have the Whartons duct in this first image, and this blue line here is the Whartons duct. Bartholin's duct from the sublingual gland joins the Whartons duct, and they open together in the sublingual caruncle, and you can see this above in image 1 shown by the yellow arrows. Each gland is made of a number of lobes or divisions. Each lobe has a duct that branches and ends in an acini. Acini means rounded sacs. In these sacs, saliva is produced, moved into small ducts, which finally drain out into our mouth by the main duct. Such glands where the product are secreted outside through a ductal system to an epithelial surface are called as exocrine glands. All major salivary glands are exocrine glands. Parotid gland produces about 50% of the total volume of saliva when stimulated, and submandibular gland 70% in the unstimulated state. So right now when you're watching this video, your submandibular gland is passively producing saliva. Unstimulated is the spontaneous and continuous production of small amounts of saliva, and this keeps our mouth moist all the time. Stimulated is the secretion after stimuli, like when food is placed in our tongue, the sight, smell, and even thought of food, especially acidic food, acts as stimuli causing secretion of saliva. This is because of stimulation of secretomotor nerve fibers. Secretomotor fibers are parasympathetic fibers. They arise from the salivatory nucleus. Parasympathetic fibers arise from the superior salivatory nucleus, proceed via the facial nerve to the submandibular ganglion, and then via the Chorda tympani reach the sublingual and the submandibular gland. Similarly, parasympathetic fibers that arise from the inferior salivatory nucleus proceed via Glossopharyngeal nerve to the Otic Ganglion and then go to the Parotid gland. Salivary gland secretions are either serous or mucus type depending on the type of acini present. These are the serous acini and these are the mucus acini. Parotid gland is made of purely serous cells, so produces serous saliva. Submandibular gland have mostly serous acini with some mucus, and sublingual gland are mostly mucus acini with some serous. And therefore these two glands are called as mixed glands since they have both type of acini. There's more details about this acini and the ducts in another video about the histology of the major salivary glands. Serous secretion is thin and watery, so logically it will help to dissolve the food. Mucus secretion is thick, slippery, viscous, and helps to form food bolus, that is rounded mass of chewed food. Thank you for watching. Do leave a comment, give this video a thumbs up, share, and if you enjoy this video, want to hear from me again, be sure to press that subscribe button. You can also click on any of these links given here to watch a video of your choice.